Ladies, so nice to see you. I missed you last week. I am going to chat a little bit today about my process with being in silence. As some of you know, I was in silence for 11 days. I came out on a day 24 hours ago. And it's quite a process. I know many of you, some of you have done Vipassana retreats where you've been in silence, or other types of retreats. I mean, from the Buddhist perspective, many of those are happening in Spirit Rock and other places in California. So I know you've had experiences in silence. And maybe you even practice that. You know, it's a wonderful practice if you can accomplish it in your life, to choose a day a week that you just spend in silence. And you know, it can be working silence, where if you need to have something shared that's necessary, you share it. But that just general conversations and just catching up or meeting up with people just to have conversations wouldn't happen on that day. To give yourself this, it's such an immersion into restoration and a healing, when we are able to remove ourselves from so much noise. We've talked a lot about the frequency of sound and how sound impacts us. And of course, you know, chanting and beautiful tones, you know, the things that Lydia creates, and beautiful sounds can be very healing and inspirational and have a great impact. But general, when people are chatting, when we're sharing, often we share with an energetically, of whatever's happening and going on for us. So our tone is emitting a frequency, whether we are intending it to or not. And if we're having a situation in our life, we are bringing that with us through our voice. We can't not have it be a part of our experience. So when you enter into that with someone, into a conversation, you are also picking up the pieces of that, the very subtle pieces. And depending on how well you manage that, it can stick with you. Somebody's conversation can stay with you. You can find a sadness in that, or an empathy, or a compassion, or of concern. And to take yourself out of that for a day a week or a day a month, when you have the quietness and the stillness, to be able to, it's like a cleansing. So all of those accumulated energetics that have come to you through that week or through that month are able to sort of be sifted out, and then you get to start fresh. It's really how we cleanse, how we take care of our energetic body is as important as how we take care of our physical body. And I know, you know, most of us are pretty good about figuring out how to eat properly and how to get our exercise and, you know, what to do with our body. But when we think about our energy and how we protect it, and how we release that which doesn't serve us, it's not always so intentional. And that is the one thing that I recognize here at the ashram, even not in silence, just in general life here, is that I have a lot of silence. I'm basically in working silence all the time, because I don't have girlfriends here. I work in the temple and I come back to my space. And so if I'm not on the phone with City, other than my time on the phone with City, or one of, you know, my kids or something, but in the world that I live in here, it's very quiet for me. But going into silence is another whole level of that, because when we're in silence here, we try to not be using any electronics at all. So I allowed that my kids could text me if there was an issue, because I want to stay connected to them if something comes up. And it turns out the two of them got COVID while I was in silence, after, you know, almost 2.5 years of managing it so well. No one in my family had gotten COVID, and then just two of them did, but they're doing fine. So, but other than that, you know, you're not on the computer, and you're not having phone conversations with people, and you're not here. It's very common for people to be in silence. People that are residents here, as I am, they go in and out of silence all the time for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. 7's kind of a normal amount, but there are people here who go into silence for months. months at a time. And they do the work they have to do. But when you are in silence here, you wear a little tag that says silence. And everybody knows here, they don't interact with you at all. They won't speak to you. So, and you don't make eye contact. So there's no conversations happening at all. And people move out of the way for you. Like they'll even just get out of your way. We're very conscious about allowing people in silence to have their space and not crowd them. And so it's quite easy to do silence here in that way. But the difficulty of it is that, well, for me, the difficulty was not the silence part, it was the physical part, the body. Because when we're in silence, we all get a specific sadhana that we do. And mine was for 10 hours a day of different yoga and pranayama and just, different sitting things that I was doing and certain poses that I would do for lengthy amounts of time, which was really demanding on my body. I didn't realize how I had declined in the last 2 years after I had my knee situation. I had sort of pampered myself physically. And I hadn't, during COVID, I wasn't able to do my normal exercise. So I wasn't really stepping out. And my body had become much more fragile. And this, sadhana that I was doing the first few days, I was like, this is not going to work. This is really not going to work. But this is part of why we do practices, whether it's even just the practice of being in silence. We want to push out our boundaries and push out our limitations. And it's very easy for us to decide when something's difficult that, well, then I really shouldn't be doing that. Like it shouldn't be that hard. So, I mean, we know if we're training for something, but just in general, we kind of go, oh, I have like a range that I'm comfortable in, and I'm not going to really push out beyond that range. But that's where our growth, that sweet space between what we're comfortable with and what's tolerable for us, what we can tolerate, is the sweet space where we really start to get some sort of expansion. So until we push ourselves into that, either physically or emotionally or intellectually, it's not as easy to have growth. That's the growth space, and it's the spaciousness of that space that is very luscious and wonderful, but it also is really demanding on your body and your mind. And for some people, it's mental. Being in silence is a mental challenge because they have so much chatter going on. And when there's no input output happening, it becomes almost like agitation, and they'll find themselves being really annoyed. Even when I would go, and I had to spend so much time in the temple each day, and the temple's really busy right now, and I'm in silence and I can't get away from people because it's really crowded. I would try to find a corner, and then they would come over and they'd be right next to me. And then people would be talking to me from outside, people who don't know you're in silence. They don't know the tag and all of that, visitors. And it was just like, and they were coughing and sneezing. And I was like so annoyed. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. You really got to let go of this, But it was interesting to watch what my triggers were. I was fine by myself in a little cave, but when I had to get into the temple with all the people, I was like, So, it's just a way for us to recalibrate where our stickiness is. Where are we sticking, and where can we expand ourselves? And the only way to know that is to put yourself in a situation where you're testing my limitations, testing what my comfort zone is, not in an unsafe way, but in a way that can give you some information. And I learned a lot about myself and what I'm still holding out as important, necessary pieces of my experience here that are my own construct. I mean, food is one of them. What kind of food I want, how I get it, when I get it. It's like a whole preoccupation of mine here, the whole food thing. And you have to let go of it. At some point, you have to let go of some things that you're holding on to, that perhaps it's not even the food. Perhaps it's the control. Perhaps it's the familiarity to something else. It's the system that I'm used to. And I don't want to go into a new system. But we have to let go, even if it's only for a day, or it's for a week, or it's for a month. But if we're going to have a transformation, then we have to step outside of our comfort zone. So I think that for me was the illumination that came, the mindset switched a little bit for me to say, okay, where are you still holding on to things that are really lovely to have, but aren't necessary? They're not survival situation. This is not about survival. So that was all really interesting to me. And the thing that I just recognized in the last 24 hours is how much joy I feel having completed it. I was like, I felt so not even the accomplishment of it, just that the freedom of being able to walk around and say hi and not have to worry about anything of who I was talking to or if I was looking at someone or whatever. I just felt this so much freedom. And I thought that's interesting. I would have expected the joy to have been happening during the experience, not after. So it shows you how much I like freedom. I like to be in charge of what I do and where I go. So that was a nice awareness for me to look at and go, oh, that's interesting. So I highly recommend bringing in those types of rituals, whether it's fasting once a day, and it may be juice fasting. I know City's doing a cleanse, and she may speak to this during her cleanse of how we can incorporate, fasting without, I don't mean nothing, but just there are ways to do it at different levels. Many people here at the ashram fast one day a week, and most people fast on Ekadesha, which happens twice a month, the 11th day after the full moon and the 11th day after Amavasya. They don't serve food. And so people are not eating. I mean, there are other ways to get food here, but in the kitchen, they're not creating food because they want people to have their bodies get a rest. In Ayurveda, we understand that when we eat, it takes a lot of energy from our body to digest the food that we eat. So when we take 24 hours and we don't eat, our body actually gets a rest. Our digestive system gets a rest from the work it's taking. It's like its little sleep period. Even the new fasting that everybody's talking about with the 18 hours between, or whatever the number is specific to you, can be giving your digestive system a break. So looking at ways to integrate into your life rituals that are allowing restoration and rejuvenation and resting of your system, whether it's being in silence for a half a day, or, one of the other things they do here is a lot of people are in silence from 7 p.m. until 11 a.m. So part of that, you're sleeping, you're like, that's no big deal, but still for the evening you're out, and for the early morning you're out. So there are other ways to do it without doing 24 hours. And the same for eating, but I would suggest just bringing in some of that routine of just giving our system, our input to our system, whether it's food, sound, language, whatever it happens to be, allowing ourselves to have this spaciousness of silence of the system. The whole system is really healthy, particularly as we're aging, to give our bodies and our mind a break, restful, to be restful, so that we're engaging in the world from a different place of vitality. So I want to say that. I also want to say that I'm going to send out an email this week about our retreat with just some more details about it for people. Some people have been asking a few details, so I'll send that out this week. And I do want to say a couple of other little things that I learned from this 11-day silence that were kind of interesting. One is that I had to be up at 4:30 a.m. every morning. And I learned really quickly that it's not helpful for me to put a snooze on, like to start getting up at 3 and like snoozing until 4 or something. That the whole snooze button thing was not a source of more rest. It just agitated me. I was just like, okay, now it's coming. Like, I'm going to have to get up. And so I switched it partway through to just figuring out what is the adequate amount of time I need and when, so I can get up with ease, but I can really sleep until that time. And as soon as the alarm went off, up I jumped. There was no like, let's a couple more minutes. No, up immediately. And it really worked for me at that hour of the morning. The other is that I set my alarm to birds, chirping birds. And so now when it goes off, you can download, if you go on your iPhone, there's a place under the alarm to put sounds. And then there you can download sounds of whatever you want. And I was like, well, I'm up really early and the birds are so noisy here in the morning. They are crazy in the morning at that hour outside. So I thought I want that inside. So I woke up to birds chirping, and it made the ease of getting up so much nicer. The other thing I did, which City has actually taught me to do this, was that I set up my morning the night before, and I had everything ready. I knew what I was going to wear. I knew that I was going to have my 1 cup of decaffeinated tea. I knew exactly what was going to happen in my 45 minutes before I had to be in where I had to be. And that gave me there was an ease of coming in. I wasn't having to think and move, and I just had everything set up. I used to kind of laugh at City because she would the night before prepare, and she'd have whatever she was going to cook, and everything was organized. I'm like, oh my God, so much work. But it really helped. It really made a difference. It gave me a peacefulness in that space when it's still dark at that hour. So your system's a little bit like, I'm not quite awake yet. So that was really nice. The other thing was just learning what I needed in the morning, what I really needed for myself in that timeline. And I needed to pick up my space. I needed to make my bed. I needed to get it so that when I came back, because I was out of the room a lot of the day in the space that I was doing my practices, I wanted to come back to a peaceful place. And so the extra 10 minutes of making my bed or whatever, I washed my teacup. I left it in a way that it felt peaceful when I returned. So I wasn't rushing to get out. I took my time to get these things. I left adequate time, and it's really nice to do that. And the last thing that I started doing, which City's been suggesting to me for a really long time, but I've been very stubborn about, was some stretching. Because the movement of the body, particularly, when you get up really early, if the first thing to roll out of bed and do a series of just small stretches, but to just allow our body to wake up to that we're moving about. Now I'm moving. My body has been, inert for these hours. Now I'm moving. I need to be able to give it the time it takes. I just noticed that more at this age, that it takes me a little bit longer to feel like I'm light on my feet. And it's just nice to give myself 5 minutes before I'm having to exit the space. I exit here, and you have to be really careful because the snakes are out in the morning when it's dark. So you've got to get your phone, and you've got to open the screen door, and you've got to flip on the light all at the same time, because you want to peer, because they sit on the doorsteps, right at the door. So you want to look out before you step. You do not want to step without looking. So it requires a certain balancing agility. You've got to be really smart in the morning. You cannot be foggy here in the morning because it's dangerous. You've got to be on it. So just moving my body for 5 minutes gave me the feeling that I was alert. I was alert. So just those few things made my 11-day process. So the ease of gently moving into it, but not from languishing. I was moving. I had to keep going, but I wasn't frantic. And I think that some of us, these are just little tidbits of things that worked for me that I will incorporate into my mornings. I'm trying to stay with that schedule to continue to get up. It's a very important time of the morning for doing certain practices. Everybody's up here at that hour that's living here. So I'm going to try. It's not my normal thing. I'm not a 4:30 morning kind of person, but I'm going to try. So that's what I want to share. Is there anything else, City, that I need to share? I think that's all I need to share.
No, I think it's good, so everything that I think it's really important to share that a seed was planted. I would like for you to speak about that. Not everything comes to the surface right now, what happened in the 11 days. Maybe you speak to that.
Yeah. So I expected in 11 days that there would be some epiphany, I'd have some revelation or some visitation or something, I'd have an awareness that I got out of it and I went, oh, I've been shifted. I'm over here now. And I had none of that. So I kind of came out going, that's interesting. So did I miss it, or is it of a different quality? And Siddhi and I spoke about that, and I knew, of course, intuitively that there would be some things that would be seeded and planted in me in that practice and in that time that wouldn't be immediately recognizable. But there was a little disappointment in me because every day I was kind of waiting, like, okay, what's the, there's going to be something, like you're going to get struck by lightning, something's going to happen. And it didn't happen in that way. But there are little subtle awarenesses that as I'm reflecting now, and to be able to plant the seeds you have to step out of the ordinary to plant seeds. It's hard to plant them in the ordinary because we aren't nourishing the ordinary strongly enough. When you go into something that's not your normal way, you're more attentive about the nourishment, whether it's, whatever the pieces are that need to go with it, that give it what it needs to take care of that little seed. So we have to step out of our normal life periodically to be able to give ourselves the opportunity to nurture and sprout a new behavior or a new understanding or a new wisdom or a new pattern, whatever it happens to be. And I think some of us, I know I've always thought I could just do it by willpower. I could just change it because I want to change something. But I am finding as I'm going through these different processes that the growth and the seed that's planted happens better when I'm in a spaciousness, supportive environment to be able to consciously shift, that it doesn't just happen because it happens through effort. And it's not just a discipline of every day I'll do something different. You have to set up a different paradigm. That's what I would say. So we'll see what seeds come. We don't know. I'm going to see how good I will be at setting up my morning routine. We'll start with that.
At least you got your speech back, because the first times when we were chatting, she couldn't really speak English. I was like, okay, let's wait a little bit.
It was strange. I knew what I wanted to say, but I could not put together syllables. So if there was a word with more than 3 syllables, I couldn't articulate it. I'd be like, Siddhi, you know that word. You know what I mean, but I could not say. And even today I was trying to say something and it was like my tongue didn't work properly. It was very strange. I was like, My brain still thought of the word, but I couldn't actually get it out of my mouth. Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's interesting, that experience, and I had the experience when we did for 7 days, for 16 hours and 45 minutes, a chant, the same chant for 16 hours and 45 minutes for 7 days. When we got breaks for lunch, and at night. So, but even at lunch, when we were allowed to talk, the chant came out. So that was pretty similar. I had no control. I was just flopped out. I wanted to share something which I experienced in regards to silence this week, because I thought, wow, that's such a beautiful interruption into my life. And that was just a tea ceremony. I've never participated in a tea ceremony. I made sure there's nothing in the tea that I don't want to be in there. So it was a regular tea. But it was a gathering of women, and normally these are very chatty women. They are all in their 30s and 40s, very communicative. And they were all quiet for an entire hour. And we just watched the ceremony and shared it. And it was absolutely beautiful to experience that V-space in silence, and even leaving in silence, just going like this. So I thought that's if you ever have the opportunity to take part in a tea ceremony, just make sure there's nothing in it, really. I highly recommend it. And then I have my silent Sundays. My silent Sundays is, unfortunately, right now, there's always this one interruption that's for which I turn on my phone at 11. I have a conversation with my son every Sunday from Germany. So, but then I turn it off again. So the Sundays are I call them my silent Sundays. And maybe it's a half a day, just something where you say, I turn everything off and I just be with me. You know, I think little steps. When we are in the Western world, it's a little bit different than being in the Western world, and there are more demands. Good. So let's move a little bit. I want us to open our heart. You know, we moved into Leo, I shared that in the yoga class on Wednesday, Thursday, we had, you know, new moon in Leo. That has a lot to do with the heart. It's also the element of fire. So I want to bring that fire from the third chakra into our heart chakra. We make a fist with the thumb, the thumbs are outside. Yeah, and you want it in here through the nose, and then on the exhale through the open mouth, you move your hands forcefully in front of your solar plexus. The left hand is always in front of the heart center. The right hand is always in front of your solar plexus. So you're not switching, you're not doing crisscross. It's like, and really bring your arms back. The arms are not straightening. The elbows are always slightly bent. The only thing you hear right now is your breath. Keep your eyes closed. We go for 1 more minute. The last 15 seconds. Good. Inhale, open, suspend your breath. Exhale, open mouth. Come back to the mudra in front of your heart center and solar plexus. Take 3 deep breaths here. Inhale, nose. Exhale, open mouth. So this is also a great movement. If you sit a long time in front of your computer, just to do this, you feel the opening here in your chest and in your shoulders, right? So now we're just pressing down with our thumb on our middle ring and pinky. So only our index fingers are extended. The elbows go down and arms to the side. And the back of your hands touch overhead. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. All breath now through the nose, please. Eyes are closed. Reach up as high as you can. So we're activating Jupiter right now, the Lord. It's always called the Lords of the Lords, the Lord of good health and wealth and good luck. It's all in our index fingers. Last minute, keep going if you can. We all should be able to do this for 2 minutes. If it's hard, then I suggest you do this every day until you get to 2 minutes and then get comfortable. Because then you know that you work for your heart, for your lungs. Just 15 more seconds. We relax our arms down, either the hands onto your thighs or your knees. Keep your eyes closed. Feel into your body. Like what Nirmala said, the body, it just needs a little bit of attention and time every single day. Just for her to move, to stretch for 5 minutes makes a difference in the entire energy body. And because we are walking a lot, hopefully, but we are very little using our arms anymore. That's why I have a lot of emphasis on moving the arms, because they're crucial for our health, the movement of the arms. So we do one more posture for the arms. Bring your arms up. So my fingers are spreading really wide apart. I make a fist. The thumb is outside and I bring the fist to my shoulder. I inhale, exhale. All movement we did this morning was approximately 6-7 minutes. So always remember, you don't have to plan for 45 minutes or an hour. Just give your body a break. For your body, having a break means that you're moving consciously all the parts of your body that you normally don't move that much. Or you move them in a different way. A little bit more. And you can go a little faster if you can. 30 seconds. Your lymph is dancing inside of you right now. All these lymph nodes. Inhale up. And exhale, slowly sweep your arms by your side. I want to use the mudra for the heart. So you bend your index finger. And then the tip of your thumb goes to the tip of middle and ring finger. So I bend only my pointer finger. My tip of my thumb goes to the tip of middle and ring finger. And my pinky is fully extended, both of them. And you rest this mudra onto your thighs or knees. Yeah, palms facing upward. And I want you to inhale, counting to 5. Exhale, counting to 5. So if we have a breath of the same count, we're bringing more balance to the heart. And this mudra will decrease your overthinking. It will balance the ether and the earth, so the heavens and the earth within us. And it activates the heart and the small intestine meridian. So a lot is happening while you just inhale, counting to 5. And exhale, counting to 5. All breath is through your nostrils. You count just mentally. Dropping your shoulders. Head is up so that your lungs are not getting restricted. We are letting go of the counting and just breathing normal. Bringing our hands into prayer pose. Bowing towards the heart. Inhale to begin. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We wish you a silent weekend.
And step into vitality, ladies. Amen.
See you next week.